So, do you need a college degree to be successful? And if not, what kind of jobs can you do? I want to share some info with you guys, also get your feedback as well. We have a lot of people in the community that do all kinds of jobs, and it's always good to hear, things from other people, especially if people have experience with said jobs. The other thing too is I want to mention is whenever we talk about these kind of things, I want you to be realistic. You can actually do all kinds of things in your life, but have realistic expectations of what those things could be. So anyway, let's start with this. This is coming from CNBC. They made a list of some of these jobs, and we'll look at some other data as well. The first one that came up is kind of interesting. Is actually air traffic controller, and we're referring to college degree. Essentially, is less than a bachelor's. So this one you would need to get associates, but if you guys know, it's essentially the people in the control towers at the airports, right? And we'll read the description of this one. Air traffic controllers ensure orderly and efficient operations and air traffic flow to help prevent delays or the need for flight diversions. They must have extensive familiarity with air traffic rules, regulations, and applicable laws, as well as standard traffic control procedures and emergency protocols. This is a high-stress occupation that requires the ability to make quick decisions under pressure. Median salary is 130. So be curious, you guys, what you think about this, if you'd be interested in this kind of job. My understanding, yes, it's very, very high stress. And also, too, sort of what's going on lately, I think the whole travel industry, or say business travel industry as well, was under a lot of stress during the pandemic. And there may be opportunities in this one. I know there are opportunities in the airlines as well, because there's a shortage of workers. But again, these are high stress jobs, and I'd love to hear from anyone who is in this field of, say, air traffic controller. And if the salary, I think that is probably right. And I think all these numbers are correct, but the salary is actually pretty good for that kind of job. Also, too, this one is actually an interesting one. I didn't even think about this. Nuclear power reactor operator. And it's funny, I laugh because the first thing that comes to my mind is like Homer Simpson sitting at the Springfield nuclear power, and I'm sure you guys know Homer. But evidently, this pays about 104 in the median. That's just the middle salary. This is what they do. These operators operate or control nuclear reactors, move control rods, start and stop equipment, monitor and adjust controls, and record data in logs. They also implement emergency procedures when needed and may respond to abnormalities, determine cause, and recommend corrective action. And so evidently, you only need like a high school diploma or equivalent, and you can do 104. I'm not sure in terms of like long-term health ramifications, because I do think that is some concern. And again, that's why I asked you guys for advice, anyone who works in this field. And also, too, I'm not quite sure that the need for this kind of job right now. I will say, though, there is a possibility in the future as we push for more alternative energies, I'll say alternative to, say, oil. I think nuclear may or may not be a thing. It's going to depend on which country you're in as well. But these jobs, certainly, I could certainly see them paying high, because you want skilled people to be in this kind of job, especially for safety concerns. I'm sure you guys know. Here's another one that's interesting as well. Radiation therapist. And these kind of jobs, I think, are always going to be in demand. I didn't know they paid this much. I know it is not a bad one at all. So this would probably be like one of the ones, if I were to say, hey, out of many of the jobs we look at, I would say if you're looking to do something that pays well and doesn't require that much education, so this is an associate's degree essentially, this would be one to take a look at. So what they do is, according to Indeed, radiation therapists work closely with cancer treatment teams to administer radiation treatments to cancer patients. They make sure machines work properly, ensure correct radiation doses, take x-rays, and maintain patient records. And national average salary, $126,000. And, this is even talking about the job outlook. It's saying, what is it saying here? Job openings for radiation therapists are expected to grow 6% over the decade, or about 800 openings per year. I'm assuming that this is always going to be around. I don't think we're going to get rid of x-rays anytime soon. So if you're looking to go, for a job in the recession, I think pays well, and there will always be opportunity. I would say this would be one of the better ones on the list to take a look at. Also, too, senior real estate manager. So these are basically the people that will manage like groundskeepers and just manage the properties. We'll read the description of it. Real estate managers are in charge of overseeing the daily operations of a property, like an apartment complex or commercial building. They typically manage maintenance teams, ensure rent is paid in, and fill vacancies. To become a senior real estate manager, you typically need to gain experience in entry-level positions and work your way up. So the national average is 135. This is a high school diploma job. And then they're making the case, job openings for property and real estate community associate managers are expected to grow 3% over the decade, or about 33,000 openings per year. It's interesting because like when we compared the percentage gain of the radiologist compared to this one, this certainly has more jobs in this field. I could see this kind of job though as being sort of like you work your way up at the property, right? Maybe you start as, say, for example, a janitor, and you work your way up and you start to learn to manage teams and things like that. So I'm not sure if you could just step into this job without working your way up. And I'd love to hear people's thoughts on this particular one. I also think that this is probably something that will never disappear. I guess theoretically, well, I take that back. I guess theoretically in the future, we will go to robot maintenance for, I don't know, for now. and like robot maintenance, like for example, I have a robot vacuum in our house, and I'm sure you guys, have these kind of things as well. But still, fixing like the pipes and, the roof cleaning, the gutter stuff, and these kind of things, and then managing people who do these kind of things. I think this will probably be a fairly secure job. And I didn't realize it paid this well, to be honest. So that's not bad. That's actually better than the radiologist. But I think you would have to work your way up. I would agree with what they say there. Then there's this data too, actually, from Georgetown, which I think is definitely worth looking at. They have 4 rules, which are really interesting to determine sort of how much money people earn over a lifetime. And there's different things to take in consideration. So let's take a look at the rules, then we'll look at their actual data and look at more specific jobs. So rule number 1, degree level matters, meaning sort of like, how much level of education you're going to get. And also depends on your occupation, right? So rule number 2, occupation choice can trump degree level. The point being, if you choose occupation or industry that pays more, that will matter opposed to if you choose one that doesn't. So for example, you may have less education, but you're, say, in engineering or construction, opposed to you could have a lot of education, but say, for example, you choose religion, right? Maybe you're not going to make that much. So occupational choice can trump degree level. People with less education in high-paying occupations can out-earn people with more education and less remunerative occupations, right? Rule number 3, that's a complicated world out there. While occupation can sometimes trump education, degree level matters still matters most within individual occupations. So, for example, guys, let's say you choose to go into business, you work at a big company. In that particular company, they may give promotions and sort of pay raises more to people who have more educational attainment. It could be the same as with teachers, could be the same in the military, these kind of things. So the level of your education matters in terms of in your individual industry. But when you're comparing across industries, then it can be different. When you see the data, it'll start to make more sense. Then rule number 4, which is something that is really important to understand as well. Race and ethnicity and gender are wild cards that matter more than education or occupation in determining earnings. So essentially who you are also determines how much money you're going to make over a lifetime. Now, when you take a look at some of the actual data and the way that you compare this red line here is essentially the median income with someone with a bachelor's degree, okay? So the basic gist of it is, according to this chart, and you guys can see it for yourself, if you have less than a high school education, only 7.3% of those people will make more than the average / median, is the middle salary, of someone with a bachelor's degree, right? So basically, and as you go up the chart here, the higher chance you have to make more money, the more education you get. Now, it's not guaranteed. That's why some of these, circles are really big. Like, for example, you go up to, say, high school diploma, right? So 14.3% of those people can make more than the average, median is a better way to say it, but I'm just saying average, so it's easy to understand. Average salary of someone with a bachelor's degree, right? And then it goes on up, master's, you can make a lot more, et cetera. So you certainly help your chances of making more with more education, but not necessarily guaranteed, as nothing in life is guaranteed. And you can pause this video and you can look at the chart for yourself, but it is really good to understand these kind of numbers. This is another way to look at it as well. So the basic gist of this one is if you have certain levels of education, will you make less or more than the average? And it basically is always going to tell you the same thing. The more education you get, you'll have a better chance, right? Does not guaranteed, but you'll have a better chance to make more money. And in fact, it breaks down even further to sort of make it really easy to understand. This is over your lifetime, okay? So as much money as you're going to make and as how long you're going to work, the more education you have. You guys can see this, for example. You have less than a high school education. Over your whole life, you'll make around $973,000 around, right? Everyone, it can be plus or minus depending on your particular situation, but this is just an average. Opposed to, say, if you get a master's degree, you're going to make $2.6 million over a lifetime, right? So when people talk about, you don't need to go to school or education doesn't matter, I'm just showing you guys real numbers so you can be realistic in what it is. We'll also look at particular jobs because, again, it depends what job you pick. So just because you go to college doesn't guarantee you're going to get a job. It doesn't even guarantee you're going to get paid well, right? It depends what you choose, which is really important. If you take a look at this actually shows different industries, or actually positions, I should say, but essentially like STEM or healthcare is actually pretty good. I mean, you guys can see this right here. That's why I always talk about, like, if you really want to make sure you secure a job, anything like health related, because it's not like people are gonna not need to go to the doctor and not need to do medical things, and then engineering as well. Now education on the list, it pays less, but we have a real shortage of people in education. And then you guys can see here, which is interesting, is you have like your blue collar personal services. Those tend to be lower on the list of what you can earn. And again, it doesn't mean you can't make money in this stuff, but just understand that I want you to guys be realistic in sort of what your opportunities can be. And sometimes, you got to show people real numbers in this stuff. And also, too, the one thing I really want to mention is, when you have these discussions, life is not only about money. So I want to be really clear on that. So that's why, some people say, well, you know what, I just don't want to do that job. Yes, it maybe air traffic control pays a lot of money, but it's not for me. And I emphasize this quite a bit on this channel. Choosing happiness over money, in my opinion, is the way to go. But you do need to have a baseline, kind of thing to support yourself. And also, too, I just want to give you guys realistic numbers so you have a general idea of the differences in choices. When you take a look at this, though, this is really interesting, and it's good to look at this data. This is basically telling you that women make less than men. Now, there's a couple things to mention, though, when you look at a chart like this. So yes, you could say women make less than men over a lifetime of earnings, but you also have to take into factor childbearing years, right? So if you do take time off work to have kids, that kind of thing, that would certainly reduce your salary over a lifetime. However, with that said, I think it's very, very fair to say that if someone does equal work to someone else, they should get paid fairly. I don't think that's a crazy thing to say, and I hope employers, regardless of who they hire, right, regardless of who you are, pay someone for their work. So that's my opinion on that. I don't think it's a tough opinion to take. But sometimes people look at numbers and they try to make up explanations, and it doesn't make any sense to me. It is what it is. But I'm all about fairness, and I think that like I said, I stand by that to be fair. This is also regarding race. You guys can take a look at this data as well. These things are hard to difficult to talk about because it's not like, hey, change your race and you'll get paid more, kind of thing. But it is something to be aware of, and unfortunately, blacks and Latinos get paid less than, say, Asian or whites. It's unfortunate. And there's any number of things. Now, these charts don't take into consideration industry, right? The other thing too, which I think also matters, don't take into consideration cities that people live in, because it certainly matters. So I just give you a simple example. If you go out to California and you go to San Francisco, there's a lot of Asian Americans that live there, and the cost of living there is really, really high, and then also to salary be high. So not everything is cut and dry, right? There's some complicated in there. The other thing too, we're also looking at particular jobs. This is all coming from the Georgetown data. So these are the essentially top 5 occupations depending on your educational level. And this is why I wanted to show you guys these things to think about. Okay, if you're not going to go to college, or maybe don't want to do the full 4 years, what kind of jobs can you expect, and how much money could possibly make over a lifetime? And this would be the best case scenarios. So this is in $2,009 is how they're doing it, but it gives you a good idea of the rankings and what they're saying. So less than high school. So we're looking at construction managers, construction equipment operators, paving, surfacing. Yeah, you know what? That would actually those would be all the people who work on the roads and that kind of stuff. First line supervisors, managers of production and operating workers. What's this one? First line supervisors, managers of construction trades and extraction workers. Yeah, so a lot of these kind of jobs, say like in the trades, which is something that I don't think people talk about enough, and we've talked about on the channel several times. If you're trained in a skill that is a trade, well, this, for example, plumber, for example, or to operate a bulldozer, that kind of thing, those jobs are definitely needed, and you have to have skills. And this is something that I emphasize so much on this channel, is if you want to get a decent job, have skills that people will pay you money for, right? So this would be less than high school education. You can actually do okay in your lifetime earnings, right? 1.7 million, 1.5, these kind of things. If you have a high school diploma, right, there are other opportunities available for you. So what do we have? General and operation managers, construction managers, manager of construction trade. Yeah, a lot of construction jobs here. You also have miscellaneous managers, engineering, funeral director. That's kind of interesting. I didn't even occur to me that that would be a occupation. I mean, it is an occupation. I know that, I'm not stupid, but it just didn't occur to me that that would be something that would be on that list. Actually, true story. There's a movie, a Japanese movie about that job, which is really quite interesting. What's it called? It's called like I can't remember. I'll put a link when I remember. It's about a guy who plays cello and he ends up going to work at a funeral hall. It's a good movie. Postmasters, mail superintendents, and electricians. Yeah, so these are all sort of construction kind of jobs. If you get some college, right, but not necessarily a degree, and then you start to move into like police officers, and you guys can see the earnings start to go up on these jobs, right? So then the higher would be, they're saying like chief executive or legislator. I think those would probably be special case scenarios where like somebody probably started college and quit kind of thing. I don't know how many people can do that. But marketing and sales, which is interesting because I always see those kind of job opens. I think it's got a higher burnout rate. But the thing with people with that are in sales, it largely depends on you. And I think you guys know these kind of things. And if you go back to, let's see, associate's degree, police officers also up there again, marketing and sales, firefighters. Oh, interesting. So firefighter is different than police, where you can see here firefighter lists this as having a requirement of associate's degree. So I'd be curious if anyone out there is a firefighter to talk about these kind of things. So these would be the essentially top jobs regarding level of education and also to how much you can earn over a lifetime. Now, in terms of the bottom earning ones, essentially you're not going to make as much money. So take a look at this. So this is less than high school. So this would be like your food prep people, your cashiers, personal home aides, and there's a lot of people like that. And a lot of these kind of jobs are, just to be perfectly frank, at least in LA, are taken up by people who are immigrants, essentially, these kind of things. And it doesn't pay that much. So if you go up a little bit more and get a high school diploma, they're putting in more like cooks, barbers, hairdressers, hairstylists, cosmetologists. Now, I don't know. That's an interesting one, guys, and please chime in. I'm actually not sure. They're saying hairdresser would be with high school diploma. I'm actually not sure that would be a thing now that I'm talking about. And I don't know, like, say high school diploma. You don't really need a high school diploma to work in a restaurant or a coffee shop. I don't think so. So I'm going to dispute this list just a little bit. I don't know if you necessarily need that. Or maybe the way they're putting it is, if you have this level of education, this is the kind of job that you could probably get. But again, these are at the bottom of the level. So unfortunately, though, for those of you in the service industry, ever worked at a restaurant, the pay isn't that great. I think bartenders can do okay, my understanding of it, but I don't, this day and age, I don't know, but I know in the past they could. Now we're saying some to college, no degree. You're starting to get into real estate brokers, sales agents, which is quite interesting because, we talk about this a lot. There's other scammy YouTuber channels out there that try to sell you real estate classes. And this is the actual salary right there. It's not that great compared to other jobs. So like I think you're probably better off going into construction than say a real estate broker. But I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on that. And again, I am not for those scam YouTube channels that try to sell you those kind of classes. That's my opinion on that. Also too, they have, barber, hairdresser, boy. Yeah, this is interesting because why are they saying here some college, no degree, and they're putting barber and hairdresser pay lower than people who have a high school, just only a high school diploma? Do you guys see that? That's kind of an interesting one. So my understanding of people who are say, like for example, I'm Vietnamese. You may not know, a lot of Vietnamese have nail salons. My understanding of some of these kind of businesses is you can do okay if you're the owner, but you have to have 10 of these kind of things, and the money starts to come in, but the actual workers maybe not get paid that much. Associate's degrees, you're looking at janitors, receptionists, right, cashiers, teacher assistants, these kind of things. And these are the numbers. You can pause this video. You can look at this data for yourself. But the reason why I'm showing you all of these things is because I want you guys just to be realistic. I'm not making any judgments, these kind of things like that, because to be perfectly frank, there's a lot of jobs out there in the world, and people kind of gravitate to what they want to do. Now, one of the things I will say though, with any kind of training or education, it gives you more options. And I know there are a lot of people out there that hate their job. I just, it's a real thing. I know that it's a thing. And that comes at all levels. And so, I think the dream is to find a job that you enjoy going to work to and that pays you a decent salary. The way that the world is right now, prices are going to keep going up with inflation, and I know that it's a lot of like misinformation out there, and that's why I'm just trying to give you guys a general sense of to what opportunities there are and what realistic earning power could be. Because perfectly frank, food is expensive these days, and I want you guys to do well. So hopefully this is helpful. I just wanted to share this information with you guys. Love to hear your thoughts on these things, and if there are any other particular jobs that you think would be good for people to know about. For people who don't necessarily want to go to college, because it's not for everyone. I would keep recommending the trade jobs, but I'd love to hear from the community as well, or any thoughts on any of the jobs that we talked about. Thanks again for watching, everyone, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.